Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sean Tarry, striker. We're looking at Sean today. We're going to discuss his horses for the upcoming feature season in Durban.
Yeah, great. But I think just before we start, maybe we could just ask Sean, how and why did he become a trainer?
Oh, you obviously know why and how. So I feel there's a story coming up here. Go on.
No, there's no story. I think that maybe the public just want to know, why did he become a trainer and how, Sean?
Morning, Joao and Piere. Good to be here chatting to you guys today. Morning, public. Listen, that is a very tough question. I needed a gap year, and instead of going overseas and spending time wandering around and working part-time jobs, I decided to just spend that time outdoors with horses. And basically, I was told by a lot of people that I couldn't do it, I couldn't make it, I had no chance. And it was probably just a stubborn streak in me that decided to actually give it a go. And that's basically how it started.
You had nothing else to do and you couldn't afford the flight.
And then, Sean, secondly, what makes a good trainer?
I think a good trainer has to tick a lot of boxes. You first of all need to know how to pick a horse. You need to know how to place a horse. You need to know how to keep a horse fit, but not only fit for one race. You need to keep it with the whole season in mind. And you know, you would hope to pick a horse at a certain time in the season. You also need to be able to deal with clients and get them to buy horses for you, to invest a lot of money in your yard, which is probably my weakness. You've got to understand the handicapping system. You've got to have a fair understanding of horse anatomy. I think there are a lot of different subjects that need to be covered, and the trainer that's successful will cover as many boxes, or maybe more boxes than the opposition.
Are you a purveyor of racing? In other words, did you watch Dancing Brave win the Arc and get inspired? Did you watch the 2,000 guineas on Saturday, or not? I don't know you that well. That's why I'm asking.
So early days, being single, I was a lot more in tune with what was going on in the world and the rest of the world. Since I've had a family, it has changed somewhat, because you have to give back of your time when you are at home, and you can't just be stuck in front of the screen and you're stuck in front of your laptop, etc. So I won't say I've lost touch, but I'm not as in tune as I was as a youngster.
Well, racing history was made on Saturday at Newmarket. I don't know if you watched. Funnily enough, racing history was made twice on Saturday in the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere, but we'll stick to the Northern Hemisphere for now. So not for like 70 or 80 years as the winner of the 2,000 guineas, not run as a 2-year-old. Okay, so this horse only made his debut as a 3-year-old, but even more importantly than that, it was his first win on turf. Charlie Appleby had stepped him out on the all-weather at Kempton 3 times, and Saturday was his first win on the turf, and he obliterated. He won such a good race, and he could be anything. Homebred, so he's a total Godolphin family, the mother, the grand. It was a sight to behold. Sean, what I'm struggling to understand with what you've just claimed is you've got all this focus on family and all this, but you somehow found time to take up paddle.
Listen, health is an important aspect, you know.
Okay. We're going with health, are we?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I used to play golf 2 or 3 times a week, which was you know, that takes up the whole day, as you know. And a week is like I'm not getting out there at all. I mean, that's just an hour and a half. But it's you know, you have a good sweat, clears your mind, de-stress. Very, very important to get out there and actually de-stress. Because as a trainer, even when you're going really well and you've got a strike rate of 20%, that means 20% of your owners are happy. the other 80% are unhappy. So, you know, you're never, ever in a win-win situation as a trainer. As many healthy horses as you have the same amount that are not doing well. You have your colleagues who get woken up in the night. Listen, to be a trainer is you don't realize the downside until you're doing it.
Fair enough, fair enough. I mean, but you can get therapy for half an hour. You don't need to go to a paddle court for an hour and a half. Just
okay. Well, we'll relook at it. We'll relook.
Striker, any other
Well,
questions?
Sean is right. You know, you can never be perfect, and you can never be always happy. For instance, I had 6 rides on Saturday. I had 2 winners, but 4 of them ran sort of not so well. Now you go home. Great, I've had 2 winners, but what about the other 4? Why did they not perform? What happened? What went wrong? Did you ride the horse wrong? Was there something wrong with all? So you never completely satisfied all the time. So you're always working in your mind. How do I fix it? You know,
It is a tough sport, pretty much like golf, isn't it?
People, Piere, think you're great, and the people that the horses didn't go that well for, thinking, well, what happened there? That wasn't a great ride, or you know, they start to include you in the result, no matter if you like it or not, and that's just the game.
Okay, so one more little bit of nostalgia, Sean. I don't know if you remember, but I was actually in your ring. I want to go with 37 years ago. I'm not quite sure what the link was with the Anthonys at the time, but I was helping a jockey. Rene Bonham had been suspended, so I was helping a young boy from Cape Town called Craig Arnold. And you legged him up on a horse called Sorovov.
little sprinter.
Is
Green
Craig Arnold the guy that used to sing on the horses? That wasn't him, eh? He's not a singer.
I'm not sure if he was a singer or not, but evidently, according to you, and you chucked him a couple of bones afterwards, he wasn't a bad work rider, and he had a bit of talent. He was a Cape jockey. So you probably won't remember us being there, but I remember that, and I remember him coming back and going, "Oh, this is quite a nice horse." And I think the horse went on a bit of a winning streak after that.
Yes, I actually do remember it. I'm not being sarcastic when I say I think he's a singer, because he was singing on the horse. He went out the rings. I said, "Gee, that's a new one." But yeah, I remember that. Funny enough, I do. I don't think it was 37 years ago, but
I've been in
probably
England for 25, eh?
like I got my license in '97.
Oh, yeah, but
I worked maybe 2 or 3 years before I got my license.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's get going, guys. Enough.
Okay, one last question to Sean.
Go on.
So the thought out there is that whenever it comes to a big day, Sean raises his game. Is there a reason for that? Just prepping horses for that meeting? Do you do anything different? How do you horses lead up to the big days?
I think it's yes and no, Striker. First of all, resources is a big thing. You know, if I want to do physio on a horse 2 or 3 times a week, that's 2,100 rand a week. You can't do that on a maiden. You know what I'm saying? The owner could get a bill just for physio for an extra 10K that month. So you've got to know that you've got a client that trusts you, that wants the best for this horse, and that you have to do what you can. I mean, in terms of chiro, physio, those are play an important role. But I mean, obviously, in terms of planning, I would say that it doesn't happen by fluke, in that they are just average horses that suddenly raise their game. These are horses that belong in those races and have some sort of claim, and have been prepping towards that. So if you take Mrs. Browning, for example, I mean, she needed her previous run. She got beaten 2.5 lengths, and she was on better terms with a good few of them. Yet it was a surprise in some quarters, yet other people that follow the game actually, you know, they found her. They tipped her outright. A horse like Lucky Lad, I mean, he's a top horse. He can take on the best 3-year-old in the country, and it'll be a race. There's no 3-year-old that is better than Lucky Lad, or way better than Lucky Lad, in my opinion. He comes out after running second to Sandringham Summit, second run after arrest. He now has third run after arrest. So the two juveniles that won had the form. So you have to do everything right, but at the same time you have to have the horses.
Okay, so let's talk about the horses. Where are we? Has Thunderstruck been retired to stud, or will we see him again?
No, we'll definitely see him again.
Okay.
We decided to sidestep the Senior Santa. He was drawn in the middle and he had 62 kilos. Obviously, he's done really well in Cape Town, traveled up, achieved his target in the Group 1. To just keep running and pushing your luck is sort of foolish. You have to obviously pick your targets. The best target would be for him the Mercury Sprint. If it wasn't such a draw biased race, you wouldn't look for an alternative. But you have to go to Scottsville. It's a handicap. You're going to give away a lot of weight. It's a Group 1, and that leads up to the Greyville finale. So whether he has a prep run leading up to Durban or not, I haven't decided. However, he will participate in the champion season.
And Sean, are you going to be commuting, or are you sending horses down? Because there seems to be this whole move towards now raiding from Joburg. Where are you on that, or are you going to take boxes?
So from early on in my career, I set up a satellite yard in KZN, and it was always a no-brainer because I had the staff, I had the infrastructure. But as things started getting a little more difficult in terms of I don't have a major client that backs me no matter what the expenses are, you have to sort of think of what the costs are involved to set up a satellite yard. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we have a lot that we're very, very happy with at 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 it's a few degrees warmer in Pretoria than it is Joburg. So you get away with a lot. Your winter comes later, and we've been riding very successfully. So, you know, I want that's a move. I've always done both. I've always had horses in both sides. Some being prepared there and some being prepared in Joburg. But this season for me, I will be mostly in Joburg. And if the winter gets harsh or the tracks harden up too much in Joburg, we may move to Durban later on in the season, middle to end of June. But at this stage, we plan to raid.
Cool. So, Mrs. Browning, what's the plans with her?
She would definitely be a filly for the SA Sprint at Scottsville. She would be backed up by Winter Greeting, who ran a very creditable race in the Senior Santa. I think she was beaten just over a length. So both of those fillies will line up for Scottsville third run after a rest. So they should be peaking. If we just forget about Scottsville, on the same day, you've got Thunderstruck. The juvenile races would be Proceed, maybe a horse like Cosmic Speed. And, you know, we're not that strong in the juvenile fillies department. Hopefully we'll have a runner, but it will be something that lands on the scene very late.
Okay. Striker, what do you think? You're riding any of them?
He makes also makes a lot of sense. Now maybe Sean will have more than one nominated in the race, and I can maybe give him a call.
Always a chance, Striker. Always a
Hey,
chance.
litigation. Are we going to see litigation at Greyville this season?
Litigation. Now, I pulled the plug on his season. I wasn't happy with the way he pulled up after his last start. I do believe he can have one last crack at the Summer Cup, and I want to just make sure we get there in good order rather than half-baked in the Durban season.
Silver Hills?
Silver Hills has been retired. Unfortunately, she pulled up lame after a... yeah, it's very tough because if you think about this season, last season we retired Rain in Holland as a 4-year-old. Halfway through the season, Princess Keller went overseas. Obviously, Bless My Stars too. So, I mean, in the fillies department, where we were actually building up to a very strong team for the season, all of a sudden we got nothing.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. That's a tough part of the game.
Yeah, and cousin Casey, where's he going?
We'll get there. We'll get there. Hold on, Strike. Hold on 2 seconds. Champion Warrior, our horse, mine and Lance's horse. Will we see him in Durban? How is he? All good? Champion Warrior?
Yeah, he's all good. Obviously had to be scratched because he had a colic, unfortunately, the night before the race, as luck would have it. We haven't rushed him since then, but he's in good shape. He's moving well. He's in full work. I think if he had to go to KZN, there is a mile on July Day and on Gold Cup Day that you could look at a race like that. We wouldn't be going for the big ones. I think he's rated 84. So, you'd have to land in the winners' enclosure before Durban to take you into the 90s, and then maybe come into one of those two races with bottom weight.
Yeah, there's always next year. Okay, Strike. Do Sean's July entries, because that's where cousin Casey is.
Yo, so July entries is like calling all pockets. I'm a little bit under pressure in the July.
Cousin Casey, Seth, Leshiel City, Otter Ruby, Jordan. Let's go now. Midwinter Wind, which we're going to talk about, because circumstances have allowed us now to talk about that horse running on Wednesday. Nebraska, Pyromaniac, Future Pill, and Lucky Lad. That's some entry.
So Lucky Lad would have to draw decently in the Gold Challenge for me to take the July seriously. So I would have to choose to run him at Greyville rather than in the sprint at Scottsville. The sprint at Scottsville would be very much my second choice. We do get to see draws for the Gold Challenge, which is the mile, before we accepted Scottsville. So my plan would be very much to run him in the mile and then decide on his next move from there.
So would you jump from the mile into the 2,200 of the July? Will he get in?
If it gave me the right answer. If he gave me the right answers in the mile, if I had enough confidence that he would stay after whatever he does in the mile, then I would do it. I think it's a decent prep, actually. Sprint mile July. I think it's a bloody good prep.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But like this horse, huh? You really like this horse, huh?
Lucky Lad.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a proper horse. Oh, he's a proper horse.
Sure, but the handicappers, will they, or those who choose the final July field, if he's only won a mile, do you think they'll accept him as a runner?
You know what, Struck? I've learned a while back. Don't worry about the handicappers and don't worry about the selection process. If you can't prepare your horse to be where you want him in the race, what's the difference if he gets a run and you've had to prove yourself going races that you're not comfortable going to satisfy the handicap and satisfy the selection panel? If your horse doesn't get a run, it doesn't get a run. That's how I look at it. I mean,
well, ability is there. The ability is there. It's just, I suppose, they must accept that he won a mile. Say he wins a mile, that he's good enough to win a 2,200, I suppose.
I would think that if you had to win a race like the mile or fight it out, they would have a hard time leaving you out. Let's put it that way.
Interesting. Well, viewers, I mean, that's something to take out of this video. I mean, obviously the horse is rated highly, blah blah blah, but it's good to see a trainer's face light up. Do you know what I mean? When he talks about certain horses, because from a punter's perspective, you want to have this horse in your camp every time it runs.
Yeah, listen, and remember that he lost his reputation at Greyville over a mile. Things went horribly wrong. He needed surgery after the race. I'm very happy to get back there, take on the same horses that have had the reputation since, and let's see. Maybe I'm dreaming, but we'll find out.
Okay, well, he's definitely going into my NAGME. So NAGME is an online thing where you put horses in and then it sends you emails when they run. He's definitely going into that. Okay, so let's just talk about Midwinter Wind, because I think it's a certainty on Wednesday. Please don't put me off. I'll like that also.
Okay, so Midwinter Wind, since gelding, he's done absolutely nothing wrong. He needed his first run back in the maidens, and after that, he's done everything spot on. We have to see what's his limit in terms of stamina and distance. But he's had a lovely preparation. Obviously, it's not ideal to be camping in Durban for 5 days. I would have had more confidence having landed in Durban when I did and raced the next day. But that is what it is. Yeah, he's in good shape. He's very well.
Easy horse, no complications.
No, straightforward. This race would tell me whether I would go daily news or not, and you know what his limitations are.
Yeah. I like him, man. I really like him. I really like him. Go on.
Interesting race because there's going to be absolutely no pace in the race.
That's right.
And we're playing the mile for the first time. We don't really want to go and make it for everybody else. So it's going to be an interesting race. I hope it doesn't end up a mess.
Yeah. Does the snow pilot normally lead? Apparently.
He's still prepping, and you know,
He won't go hard.
I don't think it will. I mean, Richard may go, but I wouldn't rely on it. If he does go, they're going to still walk.
Is he a horse that can go to the front and lead?
I think he is. But we also want to learn something. Remember, the next
Stepping stone to further.
The daily news. If you decide to go there now, if you go too hard and maybe you're not finishing over the mile, are you going to have the confidence to step up in the tooth?
Yeah.
It's pace related, Piere, but it's also got to do with confidence. You need to have confidence out of these type of runs to move into the group ones over more distance. You can't just say, oh, well, the pace wasn't on. He got beat 5 lengths. That wasn't his run. Because you long aimlessly. You need to have evidence on what's to come.
Me personally, if I owned the highest rated horse in any race, and we did this, I know it was only a maiden, but we did it with Tamara Scottsville the other day, where her run style is to come from off, but there was no pace in the race, and Gareth told Jason, take this horse to the front. Me personally, when there's an awareness of a lack of pace and a worry about turning it into a sprint, if I owned the best horse in the race, I'd just say, just go, make the rest catch you.
Yeah.
Even if it's not Sandringham Summers run style, just go. You got £3 on Snow Pilot. You got as much as 50-something pounds on Royal Edition. The last thing you want to do is be in a bit of a mix-up. But that's my opinion. I'm not saying it.
I would say 80-20 rule applies. 80% of the time you're going to be right. 20% of the time you've got those individuals that need something specific to happen in the race, and it may not be about their position in the race. It's more about their demeanor. And if you've got a horse that doesn't settle and you want to go off to the front, well, that's the best way to cook the best horse in the race. A horse that over races and goes forward.
I see it more in Europe though, Sean. I see that they commit these horses.
In Europe, probably fitter horses, more stamina orientated. There's not too many horses that are being grabbed to go a steady canter sprint. I think you see a more genuine pace or more even fractions, even if it's not 100% genuine. You don't see this trying to strangle them in front and try and pinch straight.
Sean, okay, we back to 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿. Were the issues last time?
Well, he's a lovely example of what we've just chatted about, because he was made too much use of last time. And even if you look at his run in the Summer Cup where Grant tried to settle him, he didn't have any luck in finding the right horse to run behind or to settle behind. He's over-raced. I think you can just put a line straight through that last run. It's not even at the back of my mind. We're going to Gravel, where he's probably been his most successful track. I'm expecting a big run.
Yeah, I'll take your point, Sean, with regards to it being an example. However, the 13-horse field, you would have liked to have thought there was pace. And I remember it was the going was appalling last time because we had street art in the race. So my point was more in a small field like we're going to have on Wednesday, where we can get a bit of a mix up.
Yeah, I think I share your sentiment. When a horse is straightforward, I would rather be cruising along in front, going your own fractions, but than trying to strangle him to get cover. I agree with you.
Okay, so 𝐿𝐏𝐄𝐂𝐈𝐒𝐾 will see hopefully the resurgence of 𝐿𝐏𝐄𝐂𝐈𝐒𝐾 back at Greyville, where I think he won quite a lot of races as a juvenile, didn't he? So that's good.
Well, I think he will definitely give the whole fraternity a lot more confidence than after his.
Yeah, he was a lovely horse. I remember him. I mean, it'd be nice to.
He's in great shape, works good. His coat's great. He's in top shape. I'm expecting a big run.
Jordan, that's I mean, he won on Saturday. You've got some nice horses, Sean. I mean, this horse, that win on Saturday, man. This horse could be on the ascendancy for a young 3-year-old.
Yeah, we've been nursing him. Obviously, we tested the waters. We did run behind a Purple Pitcher, but he gave us a lot of weight and he beat us. And that meeting is enough for me to say you're not there yet. Right. So hang back a few months, see what you can do, and then you step him out again. And his win on Thursday showed that he is on the up, that he is basically what I think he is. But once again, now you're on the cusp. Do you take them on in the daily news and get obliterated? His rating goes to a 118 because he runs a good second or third, or do you?
Oh, we lost Shauna. Oh,
his battery might have died.
His battery probably died. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's been good. We got to keep talking. Hopefully, he plugs up and comes back. We discussed quite a lot of Sean's horses there. Hopefully, he comes back. If he doesn't come back, so far it's been a great podcast and very informative, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to know from Sean as well, now that we South African horses are allowed to travel overseas, will he start riding, or has he got an eye on, some big races internationally or not?
Yeah. Obviously, Mike did that for years, but it'd be nice to
So,
know.
how many horses you got with Sean?
I got 2.
You got Champion Warrior,
and I got an unraced Rafif with Lance as a partner.
Okay. Any feedback?
I want to tell you that this Rafif is an absolute machine. He's trying to come back now. We can ask Sean.
Well, I've got a small share in a filly, my wife and I.
Yeah.
Midnight Fusion. Now, Midnight Fusion, in the beginning, she used to work with Mrs. Geriatrics. And there was nothing between the two of them on work, on ability. And so Midnight Fusion won her first start out, and she won easily, and it was like, wow, great. So it shows you where the one horse can go and the other horse doesn't go. So Midnight Fusion is struggling to second race, and Mrs. Geriatrics, I think, won 5 or 6 in a row. And in the early days, they showed very similar ability. So yeah, that's racing. Being an owner, you've got to hope that your horse, improves and goes through the divisions, not just win one race.
But I think Sean's back. I think, but what I like about the trainers that I've ended up with, Sean, Mike, Gareth, and I paid my school fees with other trainers. But what I like with these trainers is the common denominator with all of them is there's a plan. And obviously the plan doesn't always work out, Piere, but there's a plan. And I think a plan is there's a saying, failing to plan is planning to fail, you know. Sean, welcome back.
Sorry, gentlemen, I told you I
load
was
shedding. Go with load shedding. Go with load shedding. Go with load shedding.
No, Joe, I think you're 100% right. Sean, we were just talking about, Joe was saying he's got stables now with horses in different yards, but the top yards seem to have a plan to go forward. Me, myself, as a jockey, I've noticed as well, I'm not mentioning any names, I'm just saying, you can see there's a difference between a stable. They probably need to run their horses week in, week out, because they've got small yards and need an income. But it's basically trying to get every race win or run a place so they can. There's not a plan for the future. There's not a putting a horse in the right race. It's just running it for the sake of running it and hoping.
Pierre, I think also I'm going to have a go at the operators now, because in England you will often, if you go in the Racing Post in England, you'll often see horses that campaign in the same race year after year. Okay, and I feel that a lot of the way the program is generated in South Africa, these guys are always on the bloody back foot. They're always like, oh, I don't know when the next 1,000-meter race is going to come. So sometimes the planning is, or the lack of planning isn't their fault, because I don't think we have an actual handle of what the horse population looks like. How many maidens do we have in Gauteng at the moment that need 1,000-meter races? Does anyone know? Does anyone?
Listen, there's only X amount of races, Joe, and the administrators, the for racing, Kenilworth, Cape Racing, all the guys, they've got to cut a pizza that's generally can only be cut into 8 slices. Now, this one wants 1,000-meter on the bend, that one wants 1,000-meter straight. Everybody wants something different. Everybody's waiting for something different. I must say, when we talk about the same races being won year after year, well, I would suspect you mean feature races. And if you're talking about, not
at all. Not at all. No, not at all. So I hear what you're saying, but we do live in, and we're digressing now from the main part of the podcast, but we do live in 2024 with technology, right? So we're coming up now to breeding season, technically speaking, right? So we should have, with technology, an awareness of what our horse population looks like, how many fillies we've got in KZN, etc., and what they need to do, whether they're going to be retired or not. And I hear what you're saying. The pizza's only X size, right? But we can allocate different races. We shouldn't have 7 horse maidens over 1,000 when most of the population needs mile races. I'm not saying it's an exact science, but we should have a finger on the pulse of what the horse population looks like.
You're right, but let's say that you are correct. What happens to those 7 horses that need 1,000 meters? What about them?
Oh no, we still need to. No, I'm not saying we don't cater for them, but I'm just using 7 as an example, right?
Yeah.
I think, look, there were times when I was looking at the program for a horse, and the program hadn't been released. It's only been released for the next month or 2. So
now that's a different story. I mean, that there should be no excuse for.
But to release a program, to effectively and efficiently release a program, what would definitely help it is if we knew what the population looked like and what we needed.
I do think they have those figures, and I do think it is applied. I just think it is not an easy task, and I'm not here to defend anybody, but I know that it is a tough task. I know that I have many horses that the program falls into place perfectly, and there are many horses that I struggle with. So it's just one of those things.
Where this was coming from was Piere was asking me about how many horses I've got with you while you were offline, right? And then we were talking about some horses show a lot when they're younger and then they don't, and then etc. And then it led to me saying that in a handicap system like we have in South Africa, where 80% of horses are rated less than 70.
Yeah.
Right. I feel the horses rated 120, they find their way. We know which races they're going to go for every
They
year.
found their way, but they still have to race.
Yes,
So
no, I
they
get
have their
that.
feature races, but you need to have a program for them. Now, this is, you've hit the nail on the head right here, because it's actually split into two. Your top horses that are going for group races and your bread and butter horses. It's not a nice term, but I'm going to use it.
No, but we all
Okay.
have them.
Right. At the end of the day, you can't say, well, 80% of your horses are on the bread and butter side, and 20% are your bigger horses. So what is that? How do we then give the feature horses their time in the sun, their good prep races, all of that? You know,
Correct.
it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
And
So
I
what
don't
you're saying is
believe that
you can't give 80% of the races to the bread and butter horses and only 20%. You have to be fair. You've got to even it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the
But if you add
80% of those horses are, of the 80%, you still got another 20% or 30% within that group that are aspiring to get to the big league. So you can't how do I say, dilute the big league too much, because that's what racing's about. We've got so many owners that are growing and they only want to have big horses. So that's what they're aspiring to. Many of them have a lot of horses in the 80%, but they don't want that. So
That's how
that
we-
80% will be cut down very quickly, because they're aiming at the big league. So
That's how we
it's
need-
a very difficult balancing act.
correct. But
And
we
you
should have a
need
two-tier system.
all provinces and all administrators to work together.
And we should
And
have a
that's,
two-tier system.
you need a dual system. You need a dual system. I don't disagree.
We need a
I don't
two-tier.
disagree.
So I think, personally, and I wrote this about 10 years ago already, or 15 years ago, right? So I know that the pits is only so big. But even within so big, if the program was spot on, we should have 40 grand maidens and 200 grand maidens. We should have 40 grand handicap races, but sufficiently to cater for those horses that are in that bracket. And then the second tier, an elevated tier, where you can prepare your horses on the up, your horses rated 80, 90, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I think because we don't have that, we end up with no planning, or reactive planning. Reactive planning, I should say, probably is the best way to say
Yeah, Joe, listen, basically you plan accordingly.
what's
you
put
get
in front of you.
what's put in front of you. You know what the program is. You've got to plan accordingly and do
Correct.
what you can to make the best of a situation. If you want to win, races every third week, then you mustn't be surprised when you're not on the big days. Something's got to give. You can't have it both ways. You can't
Exactly.
go for the punt in every bread and butter race meeting and expect to be holding trophies at the end of the month. It's not going to happen.
Correct. So in England, they've got a tight budget, probably tighter than South Africa, because we've got the worst stakes in the world here. But when I look at one of my trainers, Tony Carroll, right, when he steps out a maiden, which he doesn't do too often because his business model is different, but when he steps out a maiden, the likelihood of him running that maiden in a new market maiden for 8 grand, when he'd rather go to a Chepstow maiden for 3 grand, it's a no-brainer for him. So this gets to the tiering system where almost the trainer chooses where he's going to run his horse. But
yeah, I hear you.
The whole program.
I hear you. But Joe, you'll need a series of podcasts to cover this topic.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
This is a very, very in-depth discussion that, you know what, there's a lot of food for debate here.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. So let's get back to what Piere Strydom asked me was, which 2 horses do you have with Sean Tarry? And I told him I've got Champion Warrior and I've got an unbeaten Rafif, unbeaten striker. He's better than Lucky Lad. he's better than all of them because he's unbeaten.
He's never run.
Yeah, listen, Joe, you know what's nice? He's one of 25 other unbeaten 2-year-olds that I have.
Yeah. He was just asking me, what's he like? And I said, no, he's a nice horse. And that's how the conversation ended up.
Listen, I do like him. I do like him. He moves well. He's got a bit of speed. It's a little bit stop-start with him. Whenever we put the pressure on hard, it seems to rattle him a little bit, that you need to take a step back. And
Yeah.
we're happy to do that because the horse is basically asking for a bit more time. When we apply the pressure and he doesn't cope with it physically, we're going to give him that time that he's asking for. There does come a time where you have to say, well, now we've got to go no matter what. But
Yeah.
we're not at that stage.
Well,
I
Sean,
didn't know. Sorry, Piere, I didn't know, but he was the first horse I had with Sean, and I basically got bullied into taking the horse there by 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐷𝑒. I'm very delighted that I'm there, by the way, but that's how it came. But here's something you guys should know. I've just looked him up. So his family is the same family as 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐷𝑒.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐷𝑒, Melting Moments, Budding Beauty. I mean, he comes from a proper family, this horse. So.
Now, every horse that you mentioned, tell me which was the good juvenile. They all were way better as late 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. The whole family.
I don't think you and I have ever had this conversation, but we'll have it now. I have got zero problem giving a horse time. Zero. Give it as much time as it needs.
No, I hear you. But what I'm saying is, if you look at that family, they're telling you what the recipe is. And often the family does give us the recipe, but we've got other ideas. Our owners may have other ideas. But I can tell you with confidence, having had a few of the decent horses out of that family, as well as some very average ones, they all need time.
Yeah. Did you know, had you looked up his family, Sean, or not?
You actually reminded me. I looked it up when he walked into the yard, but I had forgotten that he will definitely need time based on the family.
I reckon you rode one of these. Do you remember that horse, Fav's favorite? Buddy Maroon.
Yeah, Buddy Maroon, yeah.
Oh, he's part of this family. He could be anything. He's a Rafif. We paid a lot of money for him. We paid 550,000 South African rands for that horse.
Yeah. But Piere rode 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐷𝑒 as well.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, competed from sprint winner. But Sean,
that's what happens when we have somebody on the podcast that's been riding for 70 years. I mean, it's also.
So a little story that like Sean and I have worked together for a long time, and the planning is what we were referring back to. So I rode a horse once for Sean, maybe 7-8 years ago, and he put me on a horse at the Vaal. Sean will tell us the name, and he can butt in with the story. And he said to me, jump out. It's his first start. He must still be a bit green. Let him find his feet, and then let him run on. And I jumped this horse out. And by the way, the horse's name was Legal Eagle. So jumped the horse out. He was just going along at the back. Didn't have a pace to keep up with them. I started asking me, made up a bit of ground, and about at 200, he sort of emptied out, and we ran nowhere. And I came back and I said to Sean, geez, like, Sean, is this your best? And he was so disappointed because I was disappointed. He said, this is his best, and it ran nowhere. And I was like, I was so, I just discarded the horse. And I think this is where the planning comes in. And Sean put this horse away, came back 2 or 3 months later, and I remember opening the race card, and I'm seeing this horse, Legal Eagle. I'm not riding it, and it's being backed. And I think, like, gee, I rode this horse, man. It's not that good. And the money's coming on, and I was thinking, like, I don't know what these guys. And Legal Eagle, Sean can tell us, I think, did he win 5 or 6? He won the Queen's Plate. He won everything.
5 or 6. I think he won 5 or 6 in a season.
No, in a row. In a row.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So he's an interesting one because he ended up winning 8 Group 1s. And he was as effective as I felt he was over 10 furlongs. I think he was unbeaten in his first 10 starts over a mile. But you know what? I'd realized that he had talent. I realized there was no pressure. I realized that the big days is what we were looking for, and it was very easy when I worked out the recipe. To repeat it year after year, Joao, you're talking about winning the same races every year. It was the easiest thing in the world when you know you're only going to race a horse 7 times a year or 6 times a year, and your targets are these 2 or 3 races. There's nothing more straightforward than having that knowledge. It becomes very simple, actually. But Piere, to answer your question about how did we go about identifying him, his action, his temperament? We didn't know he was going to be Legal Eagle. We thought he's going to be a top horse, but what he ended up doing is way more than we could have imagined. But having said that, after his maiden win, he went for the Derby trial, and he was the last horse to get in. He nearly did not get into the Derby trial. He won the Derby trial, and then I decided to go for the Derby, and I was even questioned as to why am I running a horse rated 87 in the Derby? Or well, I said, well, maybe he's not an 87, and he ended up winning the Derby, and from there on, it was straightforward. Yeah, but Piere, if I remember correctly, he's not the only horse that you told me. If this is your best, you're in trouble.
Yes, I don't want to get into that.
So,
I've lost to some big winners.
I'll tell you, because I looked it up now. So 𝐒𝐿𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐭𝐢𝐚 won that race with a horse called 𝐒𝐿𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐭𝐢𝐚. Soma had graduation day, Cellar Master, Paul Peter, Emerald McCar. I mean, that horse, the only horse he beat home that day was Movie Man, by the way. How did that turn out? Well
Is
done.
that so?
Yeah.
I don't remember him running that bad first time out.
Yeah. He finished about midfield or 6 or 7.
Yeah, I thought he got beat like 4 lengths. He may have run 7th.
No, you both
And
got
Piere was disappointed. I wasn't.
you both got amnesia. Ran 14 out of 15.
Legal Eagle.
His first start.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Never. That's wrong.
Yeah,
That's wrong.
Full finishing position, unless they've got it wrong here.
Yeah, that's wrong. He got beaten definitely close 5 lengths max.
Yeah,
and
5, 6.
He was definitely closer to 5th than he was to 12th or 13th.
Oh, okay, well maybe because the only place I could find his form is on At the Races, and maybe they've just got him in number order afterwards. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. But he
Cool.
didn't matter. So, okay, last but not least, give us something to follow for this next week. Sean, something for the punters, one for the punters, one for the boys.
Listen, I mean, there's nothing outstanding in the week. I'm trying to think what I've got on Thursday. Have you got my card for Thursday in front of you?
You've got Midwinter. Let's not discard that horse because I think it's a machine.
I was going to say, besides Gravel, it's hard for me to look past Gravel because I've got lovely runners at Gravel.
You have lovely runners at Gravel. You've got a first timer on Thursday, Green Sapphire. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, she's running against the nursery winner. I am in receipt of 5 kilos, but this filly's got a lovely pedigree, and while she seems to be a nice filly, I don't believe that she's giving me the full picture at home, and I would like to race her and just confirm whether I'm going to push on the season or whether I'm going to keep her for next season. I do think she's a nice filly, but she's not giving me confidence at home. But there is something that I feel that's there, and I'm hoping by dropping into a race, she'll give me a really strong finish.
And then you've got your Fado Paddler, Piere Striker riding Willow's Wish for you.
Willow's Wish, Piere can tell you more. I think he's in as good a shape, if not slightly better.
The jockey or the horse?
Well, no, the jockey's evergreen. I mean, if I had Piere on every horse, I wouldn't have a problem. He's different class. Besides the parachutes every now and then, he's different class.
Why don't you?
I'm already dieting for that horse for Thursday. Today's Monday. Terrible.
Okay, so are you, first question, are you on track?
Yes, I rode 58 on Saturday, so I'm doing well.
Brilliant. So I'll have a lot more rides for you then, just based on opportunity. Second of all, if you've given up your milkshake and pasta diet, I'm sure you're going to ride lighter than 58 this
Let's
season.
not mention milkshakes. Let's not mention milkshakes. I'm talking about.
Hey, listen
You're
to
right. Not a good time. Not a good time.
Oh. Where do you get your milkshakes from? Do you prefer them in the Cape or in Durban, Strikes?
I love
Because
milkshakes.
you've got houses everywhere. That's why I'm asking. Okay.
God, I'm not a horse.
Listen, 𝐿𝐴𝐿, Sean, you know that I've got horses related to this horse. I've got Tintin and I've got Alphabeti.
Okay.
So I need this horse to do well on Thursday.
So 𝐿𝐴𝐿, I think she's a lovely filly. She's just that real filly that's telling you, I'm not bad, but I need a bit more time. And I think we did really well to run in a 1400, where we were limited with what penalty we could get.
Yep.
She ran a place, and we got. Unfortunately, we went the next step where she ran in the Guineas, ran
Yeah.
unplaced, and got smashed by the handicapper. So I've been waiting to just find a graduation plate where we can, try and play a little bit of catch up with her rating. And even though the 1200 might be a touch on the sharp side, I think she's had a lovely preparation, and I feel she has a big chance.
Hey, Mr. Tarry, do you think we have enough graduations in South Africa?
You know what? That's a tricky question, because I wait for graduations and I have to wait too long. So in my mind, no. But often I see the noms are there, but then when the highest horse accepts, everybody scratches and they battle to hold up.
Maybe if we had more, we wouldn't have that problem.
Yeah, and you know what? The graduation and plate races are the best place to know where you stand. First of all, you don't get a penalty. Second of all, there's a good chance you could collect a check anyway because the fields are so small. And third of all, you could basically set the horse up for its next run and know exactly where you are off a way lower rating, So I don't understand it.
If
I don't understand.
If we had more, we wouldn't have these high-rated horses always attending them. Because
we had a time in Gauteng where we introduced something called the assessment plates. There was nothing better in my mind, but yet my colleagues saw it very differently. The handicappers saw it very differently. I thought the assessment plates were different class for racing. You knew exactly where you were. The handicapper knew exactly where he was, but they did away with them because they want the handicap. So bottom line is,
I've said
they
this
want the
before.
handicaps.
I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Horse racing is like the human body. And even in the human body, you need the arsehole. Otherwise, the body does not function. We need to work together, all of us. And it doesn't mean that you don't have the arsehole or the heart or the liver or the hand, whatever. But what you've just said now is, until everybody starts realizing that we definitely need to come up with a better working solution, we are doomed. Right, Paisley Park.
Paisley Park, he jumped very slow in his last start. I had to reschool him. He's got a big weight. He's getting a little bit long in the tooth, and I don't want Piere to feel that I'm putting him on horses that are getting a bit scratchy. That's why I didn't put him on. But I think he'll finish off the race very, very well. The 1200 might be a touch on the sharp side, but if he jumps on terms, I think he'll run a cracker and he'll probably run into the money.
But Piere does need the 1200, so don't just take him off.
Yeah, no. You know what? If I have to work out what rides suit Piere, and I had that formula, and I knew he'd be happy with what I was giving him, he would be riding way, way more for me. Honestly, he's a superstar.
Thank you. He is, isn't he? And we are so lucky to have him still around and giving us his time on this podcast. And we've been doing loads of these, and he's just up for it. It's brilliant. Just to listen to his insight as well. It's so valuable. And he's got such a fan base. So he really does.
You know, we spoke about a trainer on how many boxes you have to tick to be a successful trainer. The same thing goes for a jockey, and Striker ticks all the boxes. The only thing is, he is the most stubborn man to ever ride. And if he wasn't so stubborn, he would have smashed him time and time and time again. He does anyway.
He did. You know, we did a podcast with Lance last week. I'm going to read this out. I got a message from a guy. So Piere basically dissed Barberton. What's it? Barberton, whatever. It's called. Barberton Daisy, or whatever. He dissed it.
No, Battle of Barberton.
Battle of Barberton. Anyways, one on the horse in a canter. Hello, can I get more info on this? Striker won a few races, which he did not mention on the interview. Why? To which I replied, probably because horses are not machines. And that's it.
Yeah, and I mean, races aren't always run the way you expect them to be run. And you know what? Sometimes things fall in your lap.
Yeah.
But
like people don't understand. I think you get on a horse and they are exactly the same. Every single horse is the same. It's like pressing a button and the horse goes, or you press a button and the horse stops. It doesn't work like that.
No.
So, for instance, like a horse like Battle of Barberton, very, very strong. The second time out, Muzi rode him, and the comments had said over raced. So the next time I rode him from a bad draw. He's a one pace horse. So now do you go forward or do you try and tuck him in? If he's one pace, pointless to tuck him in. So when he went from a bad draw and I tried to get him out quickly, he took hold of the bit up Turfentine Hill, and obviously he died. He just went up and down. So on Saturday, you're hoping that you are going to be able to manage him over the 1,600 meters, and you're hoping that he's going to sustain his one pace run all the way to the line if he settles. Now, you don't always know if the horse is going to settle. Well, on Saturday, the horse didn't jump it well, but I managed to get him up handy. Ended up going to the front. He was totally relaxed in front, and he maintained. You can see the second horse went past him, and then he just maintained that run. So things worked out perfect. But we are not fortune tellers. We don't know how a horse is going to behave. And I'm sure that's what Sean as a trainer would also.
But I'll tell you what Saturday, what people don't actually talk about is the following. And here's what I want everybody to really listen to. The fact that you pre-analyzed the race and had an opinion that maybe he wouldn't be one of your better rides of the day did not stop you from fulfilling your engagement as a professional
100%.
and trying to race.
Exactly.
So just because...
Can I take it one step further? If somebody had to ask Piere, if this horse had to get to the front comfortably and didn't pull, do you think he'd have a big chance? I bet you Pierre's answer would be very different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Piere wouldn't have to factor in what is the horse going to do, how am I going to get over from the draw, is he going to pull? He wouldn't have had to think about any of those because you've taken that away to say, listen, the horse is strong and he's one paced, but if he, besides that, has he got a chance? I think Piere would have said definitely.
But the constant implication with Piere and with other jockeys and with trainers that there's this desire to do wrong, it does get a bit boring. And I laugh at it because I know Piere very well, as you do, Sean, but like, he wants to win, but it doesn't mean that because he found chinks in the track or the horse's armor or whatever. What he does is keep processing on how to get that horse across the line in the best possible position that he can. And he's been a master at that. And you as well, and the other trainers that I deal with, that's what you do, right? Because they aren't machines. So you figure out, how do I get this horse to perform at the best of its ability, knowing that it's slow out or that it whatever? You know what I mean?
Well, let's look
if you don't know that they're pitfalls, how do you plan to overcome them if you don't identify them?
100%.
How do you plan to have a plan B if you don't know what can go wrong? So that's the difference. I mean, I'm conservative with my tipping, with my approach. I've got colleagues that have, they've got 5 runners, they'll tip themselves to win 3. I'm never going to do that. I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you what I think's got a decent chance. I'm going to tell you what I think the danger is or what the problem may be. And you got to work it out for yourself. Racing is
Yeah.
a game of studying the facts and drawing a conclusion from those facts.
And
Yeah.
Sean, I'll tell you, the biggest educator any punter could have is, I'm telling you, buy a little share in a horse and get to understand the daily nuances of getting a horse to the track.
Yeah. Or join
Gambling.
events.
Join Glistian, because we put all that information out there. I gamble far less now that I own horses than I ever did, because I don't have to. I mean, let's look at the some of the messages I saw when Wahid was nominated and scratched, and Mike put Richard on. Was like, oh, they put Richard on to get a price on the other. When Champion Warrior was scratched because of money heist, oh, look what they've done. No, hold on a second. This is the journey we've been on with this horse. This is what happened, and this is why he's not running. And unless you convey those messages, which we try and do, but it's the best therapy a punter can have, is to take a share in a horse, and you will see how difficult it is to get it to win a race.
The thing is,
The
what's
fact
the
that
benefit?
Champion Warrior wasn't nominated a week later does dispel all those thoughts, surely.
1,000,000%. Go, Piere,
But
go on.
benefit? What is the benefit of not wanting to win? Or telling people that the horse can't win, or saying the horse doesn't have a chance. What is the benefit? I mean, I rode the other winner, the juvenile, had 1 run. The form wasn't great, and 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐬 rode it, but he jumped off to ride another horse.
Yeah.
Now, how do I give the public confidence and say I'm going to win the race when 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐬 obviously had the pick and he rode another horse? And maybe it was his judgment; it was just wrong or something with the trainer. I don't know. But I won the race, and I'm
Whatever.
going to take it.
100%. Right, guys. It's been lovely. It's been awesome knowing that Sean wants to do a series of podcasts on the program. So thanks for volunteering. We'll see if we can get one of your colleagues in. I don't know who. I'd love to tackle that subject proper. But thank you, Sean, for your time. Strikes. Thank you.
Thank you, Joao. Cheers, Shawnee.
Last word to Sean.
Thanks, gentlemen. Been
Thank
a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.